I think a lot of us do. Jake Shapiro, the beat reporter for the Colorado Buffaloes. You're with a website. Give everybody the website before we even start.
Work for a company called BSN Denver. We cover all the teams in town. I cover the Buffs as well as the Rockies.
BSNDenver.com. It's a great place to get up on Buffaloes news, but all kinds of Denver sports news. And so we appreciate you stopping by today.
Of course.
And first and foremost, are you surprised that they're where they are today?
Yeah. I mean, nobody expected the Buffs to be where they are today. I mean, coming into this season, they had won 4 games. They had won 10 games in general, I think, the last 3 years combined.
Isn't that crazy?
They've already won 10 games this year. Anyone that says they expected the Colorado Buffaloes to be the eighth-ranked team in the country on December 1st was lying to you.
One team still gets to celebrate. Unfortunately, for the viewers and watchers and readers of BSN Buffs, it is not the Colorado Buffaloes as they drop this contest 38-8.
Jake, what were your overall thoughts on this game?
Well, despite C-Unit's thoughts, which were Utah is bad, Utah was actually good.
Obviously didn't have much to say during the press conference. I mean, Wes Gordon literally said
I could speak
the
for him.
only word he said was, "I don't know." He really didn't talk. Do you think this might be a breaking point for the Buffs?
Well, I think guys like Xavier Johnson, who was Xavier Johnson night, he was very quiet. It was a whiteout.
Oh,
it was Derek White night here in the C-Unit, and Derek White,
Definitely.
23 points. He was fantastic. You saw George King have a night and a half on his night Thursday night. I think they got to make a night for everyone going forward. They just need a different night.
That's what Derek White said during the press conference.
Even said that too, and Derek was terrific. He really was the player that everyone thought he could be down the stretch. He had 2, I think, and ones, and it was just terrific to see him command the pace for Colorado, and he led them to victory. Without Derek White, there was no Colorado victory tonight.
Jake Shapiro here for BSNDenver.com, recapping one of the best games in the history of Colorado Rockies baseball as they go 20 games above 500 at 46-26. They've only been 20 games above 500 for, well, 17 days in franchise history, but that's not why this is one of the greatest days in the history of this franchise in terms of a game. Nolan Arenado walk-off cycle that's been done twice in the history of this franchise, which is ridiculous because cycles don't happen that often. Carlos Gonzalez, of course, did it in 2010. Nolan Arenado did it today, the 8th cycle in franchise history. I'm going to toss it to Nolan to talk about his cycle.
Colorado football was fun to watch last year. But as Jake Shapiro said about this season, the rise was systematically disassembled in plain sight. Here he is to expand on this thought in this week's Buff Banter.
The Colorado Buffaloes had one of the best defenses in the country. Their head coach was a Renaissance man. Their players were once again heroic, and they had a motto to die for. Poof, just like that, CU is 5-9 in their last 14 games. Those wins came against Colorado State, Texas State, Northern Colorado, and 2 Pac-12 schools deep in rebuilds. The Buffs' goals were obvious, as laid out by junior cornerback Isaiah Oliver in the spring. We have the same goal as last year, and that's to win a Pac-12 championship. But the team lived forever in the shadow of the year prior. Colorado didn't grow on last year or even keep its momentum. The sequel, as per usual, was cruel and unusual. It's not hard to pinpoint when the rise peaked and whatever it is that's going on at the 40th parallel started. Hours after clinching the South last year, the cracks started to show in a bar brawl between fellow Buffs. Weeks later, their prized defensive mastermind Jim Leavitt bolted for Eugene, vis-a-vis Baltimore Colts, and the cracks became fractures. Then, a domestic abuse scandal and the fallout that surrounded signaled a full breach. Oh yeah, then football again, without 4 NFL draft picks and a defensive staff that was entirely new. That's how we got here. 5-7 is actually the second best season in the Mike McIntyre era. It doesn't feel like it. Credit hype, internal and external expectations, but these Buffs were not supposed to stop rising. They were supposed to be different. At the very least, they'd make up camp and jump to a climb again next year. With no game in December, it feels as though CU is once again headed for the valley of irrelevance rather than the peak of college football. The aftermath of this mess, which took place during the season, began to show while the dismay was still in progress. The players who built 2016, according to Mac, looked foolish for most of 2017. Yes, they lost talent, yet it was abundantly clear that the coaches had not put them in the right positions to succeed, a trend which has plagued CU throughout McIntyre's time in Boulder. The man who coined the term the rise saw his overhyped position group drop chance after chance against Utah and all season. To make matters worse, Darren Cheverini's disagreements with McIntyre's methods are so obvious that it has been exposed from the team's secret vault. And Chev isn't the one who's wrong. McIntyre's track record with assistants has reached concerning levels. DJ Elliott's follow-up to Levitt was laughable even by fair anticipation. Brian Lindgren has lasted 5 excruciating years as the offensive coordinator, even with those above the head coach questioning why. A half-decade of lackluster special teams play has been laughed off by McIntyre to the tune of, special teams is a really easy area to pick on, very easy to pick on. It always has been. Anybody in the stands can do it. On January 10th, McIntyre signed a 5-year, $16.25 million contract to stay in the foothills. Largely celebrated at the time, now it's scary at best and a program setback at worst. It's hard to blame everything on coaching, though. McIntyre himself said CU had arrived a year early last year. So I ask, if last year was a year early, what did we just witness? This season was bad, but it wasn't a disaster. It's currently in plain view that what took place beginning just hours after they beat the Utes to go to the Pac-12 championship game and the negativity since could impact this football program in searing ways for years. To recap, the defense was seen Saturday night plowed over like snow on the side of I-25 as Utah headed southbound to a bowl. Their Coach of the Year winning headman is shrouded in rumors of departure for the second straight year. This time, many across the Front Range wouldn't mind seeing him go. Phil Lindsay is gone. Now what? This is not the fall of the Colorado Buffaloes. Not quite, at least yet. But there is no more rise in Boulder. It's been disassembled by the same men who commenced it. With would-be first-round pick Derek White and a senior-led squad, last year's Colorado basketball team was expected to be one of the best in school history. Ultimately, frustration characterized the season as it ended in dismay. But with 8 fresh faces, Tad Boyle's Buffaloes have gotten a reset. And the team has bonded quicker than usual, due to a summer hoops trip to Italy.
Yeah, the Italy trip was not just thrown, plucked out of thin air. I mean, it was planned.
Every 4 years, the NCAA allows college basketball programs a trip overseas. That gives the team 10 summer practices along with a handful of games against professional teams. The basketball aspects of the trip were certainly helpful, but the aspects off the floor were the ones the guys wanted to focus on most.
We're outside of our comfort zone, so it forces us to bond with each other, to walk around and just find new experiences and find new places to eat, and just go out and just have fun with the guys. Spending a week with teammates, some brand new, really helped to form better bonds.
And just be us 10, and we'd be pointing at everything, like trying to order, and no one understands us, and we don't understand them. So we really had to look out for each other. So yeah, it created a family atmosphere. Like
the food, the gelato, the everything, the water, the everything, gelato, everything.
For some, it was their first time overseas and an unforgettable trip.
Well, I've never left the country, so my first trip was to Italy, so that was just unbelievable, seeing everything.
For these Colorado Buffaloes, basketball has been more than just a game. It's been an opportunity to travel the globe.
Basketball's done way more for me than I ever expected. I've been all over the country because of it. I'm thankful. And now the world.
The Buffs did go 3-1 in Italy, but that's not what mattered. What mattered was how close of friends the team became along the way. It just goes to show how sports can spark lifetime friendships. Jake Shapiro,
1 2 3.
News Team, Boulder. The glory of being a top 5 team in the country can come with much respect. The University of Colorado's club hockey team has earned just that.
They beat the undefeated Minot State Beavers, the #1 team in the country.
Built behind head coach Eric Ballard, the Buffs have a unique club president, Matt Hefter, who is key in their ascension.
And Matt is a real special student. He gives a ton of his time and effort, and there is no pay. It's purely volunteer base, and he does a wonderful job.
On the basketball court or on the football field at the University of Colorado, being a top 5 team in the country would bring the attention of the entire student body. But in club sports, there's less of an audience than in the NCAA. But for Captain Matt Hefter, being on the ice is just a part of being the University of Colorado's club captain as being off of it.
The difference, and this will go with any club sport, is that the club is responsible for everything off the ice, whether it's apparel, team travel and meals, hotels, the sleeper bus, everything you can think of.
The hockey is fun, but the legacy Matt built in sustaining the hockey team is special.
And his efforts are tireless, and he's relentless in making this a better program, not only for himself, but for his fellow teammates. But more importantly, I believe that Matt is really interested in preserving something really special here at the University of Colorado.
Jake Shapiro, News Team Boulder.
Charlie Blackman and Nolan Arenado. Those two have been phenomenal all year. The young pitching held through all year. Greg Holland, the offseason acquisition of closer. He has been maybe the best acquisition that this club has ever made in franchise history, and that's why the Rockies, at 87 wins right now, are headed to the postseason for the first time in 8 years. Soak it in, Colorado. I'm soaked. You're going to enjoy this one. They don't come around often, so you better enjoy this one as well. Jake Shapiro, BSN Denver.